This is Ethan, and I'm here with Dave, and together we are Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 133-inch.
On this week's episode, we interview the guys behind one of the hottest Weird Al-related books of 2021.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
It's a podcast about Weird Al.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Seriously, the whole podcast is about Weird Al.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
You don't have to listen, but we're glad you are.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Welcome to this week's episode, and speaking of episodes, it was a ton of fun to relive our Weird Al-related Southern California adventures last week on episode 132-inch.
Oh, I totally agree. I listened to that episode twice, and I almost never do that.
Ew! Who would ever listen to our podcast?
You know, Ethan, there was something that we said on the episode that I did want to talk to you about, though.
Well, of course, Dave. You know you can always talk to me about anything at all. Now, what was it?
Well, it's in regards to the Galmore building.
Oh, no, not that. Can we please talk about anything but the Galmore building?
All right, now I know we had this conversation off the air, but us talking about visiting the Galmore building, it made me think about it again.
Oh, I think I know what you're getting at, Dave.
Oh, you do? Okay, well, I'll give it a shot, and I'll tell you if you're right.
Well, okay. So the Galmore building, the apartment complex mentioned in the song Melanie, as we've said, is based on the real apartment complex where Weird Al used to live. Now, of course, Weird Al took some liberties with the song because the real-life version of the Galmore building isn't quite as tall in real life as the song says it is.
Exactly. So in the song, the narrator sings that Melanie lived across the street on the 15th floor of the Galmore building. So I think we can both agree that the fictional Galmore building is at least 15 stories tall, and her stalker lives in a different building nearby.
Yes, I agree.
Good. So the song goes on to say that I couldn't stand it, so I jumped out from the 16th story window right above you. Now I may be dead, but I still love you. And I've always interpreted that line to mean that Melanie's stalker lived on the 16th floor of a nearby building and was looking down onto her as he was spying on her in the shower and so forth. And it was his apartment in that nearby building that he jumped from. But you brought up something that I had never thought of.
Yeah, so this was interesting. So since he says right above you, I've always interpreted that line to mean he jumped from the 16th floor of the Galmore building, either the roof or the apartment above her, not from his apartment building.
Well, that brings up a lot of questions, like how he got to the 16th floor apartment and just what he was doing there. But I agree with you that that line is ambiguous enough that either interpretation is plausible.
Well, I guess we have yet another question to add to the list that we will eventually ask Weird Al when we interview him on episode 2000-inch.
Indeed, absolutely. But in the meantime, we would love to hear how our listeners interpret that line.
Now, do you think the stalker jumped from a different building or from the Galmore building? Or do you have yet another interpretation?
So please share your thoughts with us over on our official Facebook group, group.2000inch.com.
Now, we'd also love to give a shout out to our pretty stinking majestic listeners who helped make our episode 131-inch, the interview with Scott Aukerman, yet another one of our most listened to episodes ever.
From all of us here at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, thank you for your continued support of the podcast.
We'll have more on Scott Aukerman later in This Week in Weird Al related news, but for now, let's jump into This Week in Weird Al related news!
Our episode 2000-inch guest and our episode 131-inch guest recently teamed up together for a really exciting project.
That's right, Weird Al Yankovic was the guest on Scott Aukerman's podcast Comedy Bang Bang, episode 733, which dropped earlier this week.
Very early in the episode, Scott mentions that he was recently interviewed on a Weird Al podcast, and then they go on to continue talking about Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Now, if you haven't listened to that episode of Comedy Bang Bang yet, let's take a listen to a quick clip from the episode.
Of course, Comedy Bang Bang, a big part of your life. I believe I was just on a podcast, on a Weird Al podcast, talking about you, which I would imagine your ears were burning and you immediately press play.
Whenever two or more are gathered in my name, I am there, Scott. And I did listen to Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast specifically to hear saying glowing things about me.
Did I not say glowing things about you? Because I had to keep it real, but I also had to say glowing things.
It was semi-glowy.
Yes, great. And I believe I went through early emails trying to track down, as I recall, I recorded this a while ago, but trying to track down exactly how you came to be on the Comedy Bang. Did I get it more or less right?
More or less right.
Okay.
Yeah. I felt like I relived our entire relationship during that podcast.
What was the restaurant we went to? Do you recall what it was?
Hugo's.
It was Hugo's.
It was Hugo's, which was not a vegetarian restaurant per se, which you said in the podcast.
Okay.
Vegetarian friendly.
I'm so sorry. Vegetarian friendly. Okay, yes.
Well, I can say after listening to that I myself am semi-glowing. How awesome to hear our podcast chatted about on probably the biggest comedy podcast in the world. That was pretty stinking majestic.
That was pretty stinking majestic. Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Scott, for the shout out.
Yes, be sure to subscribe to Comedy Bang Bang and listen to it on earwolf.com. Subscribe to Comedy Bang Bang World for the ad-free podcast and all that other stuff. And if you haven't already, go back and listen to episode 131-inch, where we interview Scott Aukerman, as mentioned on Comedy Bang Bang.
Well, you know what? That vegetarian-friendly Hugo's sounds like another great Weird Al-related stop for us the next time we go to Los Angeles. What do you think, Ethan?
I think that's a great idea, Dave. And I would say the next time we're both in Troy, New York, or Albany, I know some other vegetarian-friendly restaurants we should check out. This week's episode is brought to you in part by Vegan Burrito Restaurant Burrito in Troy, New York, home of the 2-pound double wrapped in a quesadilla burrito, and Wizard Burger in Albany, New York. Come on down to Burrito and Burrito your burrito, or hop on over to Wizard Burger for mouth-watering, loaded, dare I say, beefy vegan burgers. From Troy to Albany to Uranus, Burrito and Wizard Burger feed the hungry with out-of-this-world, plant-based, real food, always vegan style. Visit burritosquare.com and wizardburger.com to order ahead.
Well, fans of the Vancouver-based co-op radio show Accordion Noir may have been surprised to hear both Ethan and myself on the latest episode.
Yes, this hour-long radio show all about accordion music is doing a multi-show tribute to Weird Al, and their latest episode last week included an interview with John Bermuda Schwartz himself.
But that is not all. One of the hosts, Bruce Triggs, he reached out to us and he asked for some accordion song requests, and he invited both of us to talk about Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
So be sure to tune into coopradio.org/shows/accordion-noir or follow @accordion noir on Twitter to find out which songs Dave and I requested.
Last week we mentioned that Weird Al donated his time to the Homes for Our Troops via a charity auction on eBay. His 30-minute Zoom phone call went for a staggering $5,555.
5555! Wow! And Dave, you won't believe it. Weird Al's half-hour Zoom conversation beat out the total amount for a bunch of other really amazing celebrities, including Sean Penn, Sarah Silverman, Patton Oswalt, Jon Stewart. Even a conversation with Jerry Seinfeld and Colin Quinn were no match for Weird Al's star power.
From all of us here at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, congratulations to the big winner of the Weird Al Zoom call charity auction.
And, of course, congratulations to the biggest winner of all, the Homes for Our Troops charity organization. Thank you guys for all that you do.
I know we always thank our amazing listeners at the end of the episode every week, but I want to take this additional moment to thank you again for everything that you do for this podcast. It was always our intent to keep this podcast interactive, so we are thrilled anytime that our great listeners give us ideas for guests and topics, and very often we're able to connect with those guests and base an entertaining podcast episode around talking to them.
And similarly, while Dave and I have our fingers on the pulse of new and exciting developments in the Weird Al universe, things can slip through, so we always rely on our great listeners to keep us abreast of all the latest news and Weird Al related projects out there as well. Now, you are all very important part of this podcast, so please keep those messages and posts and everything else coming in.
While we truly appreciate every suggestion and idea that comes our way, there are times where we intentionally do not talk about certain things on the podcast that might otherwise be mentioned elsewhere in the Weird Al community.
Dave and I only invite those on our podcast who we feel have Weird Al and his fans' best interests at heart. And if we feel someone or something is taking advantage of Weird Al and his fans, rather than say something negative about it on the show, we usually refrain from bringing it up on the podcast at all.
Now, with all that said, there is one Weird Al related product that fell under our radar for way longer than we'd like to admit, and it certainly does not fall within the aforementioned.
So when it comes to books about Weird Al, we know you have a lot of choices. Of course, Bermuda's Black and White and Weird All Over, Lily Hirsch's Weird Al Seriously, and Kelly Phillips' Weird Me, just to name a few. And now we are absolutely thrilled to throw our official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast support behind another recently published Weird Al-centric book. Their book, Dear John, Emails to a Drummer, came out earlier this year in 2021. We're so excited to welcome to the podcast Kevin McKee and Rob Lenz. How's it going, guys?
It's going great.
Good. How are you guys doing?
We're excellent. It's so great to have you guys on. And I've been paging through your book, and it's quite an accomplishment. This is a huge book. It's like, let me look, over 250 pages.
Yeah, now I hope you're not going to do what you did with Bermuda's book and make us go page through the entire book.
Yeah, and there aren't as many pictures.
That's true. There's a couple. There's at least one or two. So I guess let's just tell the audience what this book is. You guys, for many years, have been corresponding with, our friend and our hero, John Bermuda Schwartz, and you took all of those emails and you put them in a book. Where did that idea come from?
Well, we figured it was so important to have stuff like this documented for future generations.
Right.
Yeah.
The idea came up back in 1996. On our 27th email, we actually did mention putting all this together in a book. And it only took us about 25 years after that to actually get the book put out.
Wow.
25 years, that's a long time. When was your first email to Bermuda?
It was in 1995, back in the early days of the internet, back with dial-up modems. And
Sure.
he unfortunately responded, and, I'm sure he's regretting that.
So I guess let's back up, because obviously you must be a fan of Weird Al if you are also a fan of John. I mean, it could be mutually exclusive. You could be just a fan of John and not Al.
No, we're a fan of both Weird Al and John. I'm the first one that had heard of Weird Al, and pretty much all of this could be blamed on a friend of mine from high school, a kid named Spike Noel. And he's no relative of Spike Jones. They just share the same first name. Right. But Spike was taking me to a soccer game. I wasn't quite old enough yet to drive, and he turned on Dr. Demento, and he said, you got to hear this. And it was Weird Al singing, Another One Rides the Bus. And it just is one of those things that I've remembered, to this day, because of the starkness of the production of it, the fact that it's this, uncool instrument, the excitement, in Weird Al's voice. I didn't know at the time that John was the one, pounding on the accordion case, in the background.
Right.
And he was kind of just grabbed out of the hall. But and you know, also obviously the lyrics and the fact that it's a song that was just ready to be parodied. But and the lyrics crack me up the most too. One of my favorite all time lines is, I haven't been in a crowd like this since I went to see the Who, and it's like a perfect example of tragedy, you know, plus time, you know, equals comedy. And you know, I was kind of hooked from then, and then I started listening to Dr. Demento and like recording the Funny Five.
Yeah.
And Kevin and I met in college, so we've known each other for almost 40 years.
Wow.
Kevin would say that we're acquaintances, you know, because Kevin, according to Kevin, has no friends. So I don't know what the criteria is to become his friend, but I'm just a college acquaintance. But anyway, I think I had been playing a recording that I made of Dr. Demento's show with Jake Hooker was the guest on it, as well as Weird Al. Jake Hooker is the guy that wrote I Love Rock and Roll. And they did a bit, you know, on the show. And I think I might have been playing that when Kevin, you know, first heard it. And then, you know, that kind of got him hooked. So we've kind of, you know, been following Weird Al and his, you know, bought his albums and the first book, I think it was called The Complete Al. But we didn't actually go to a concert until I think it was 1992 in Peoria was the first one that we went to. That was the closest that Al had come to Chicago area. So we drove down there and actually spent the night and went to a casino and then, you know, to the first Weird Al. And we actually met Weird Al after the show. We stuck around. There was maybe 100 people that hung around by his tour bus. And he came out and he sat on the steps of the opening of the bus. He asked people to just clear away. And as long as they gave him space, he signed autographs, took pictures. You know, that's where we got our first autograph. So it was, you know, kind of cool.
Oh, very cool. So, Kevin, does this story check out as what was the first time that you were exposed to Weird Al through Kevin's cassette tapes of the Dr. Demento show?
Exposed to Weird Al? What?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, the first time Rob was the one that introduced me to Weird Al. Yeah, I'd never heard of him before.
Wow.
And so you, in the back of the book, you guys have a listing of all the shows you've been to. And I have to ask, is that just like collectively, or were you guys together at each of those shows?
Oh, we can't go to shows alone.
Wow.
It's got to be both of us.
Yeah.
How
We
cool.
both go.
We actually have hats made. My hat says BER with a drum below it, and Rob's hat says MUDA with a drum below it. So it says Bermuda.
We have a bunch of pictures that we've taken with John, you know, with those hats on, but, you know.
And we actually gave him a hat that says Kevin and Rob with the drum underneath. And we saw him in between two shows in Chicago, and in the second show, he actually wore it for part of the second show, which was amazing.
Wow.
Oh, very cool.
That's incredible. So you saw Al for the first time in 1992, and then how long until you started emailing with Bermuda, or how long until you met Al that first time? Did you also meet Bermuda at that first show?
No, we didn't meet John or any other part of the band. Kevin had, you know, just kind of figured out, you know, like you said, in the early days of the internet, found Bermuda's website, figured out what his email address, and then, you know, he kind of started talking to me and said, we have to write something funny to him, you know, funny enough that, you know, he'll respond back to us. So, you know, we started putting stuff together and sending it out, and like Kevin said, he responded back to us, which he probably regrets, you know, to this day.
So you just found out that he had an email, and you're just like, well, I guess that means we have to start talking to him.
Right. And then, you know, it went back and forth, and it got to the point where he said, well, you know, if we're going to be in Chicago at a certain date, if you guys are going to the show, I'll leave you tickets, for backstage because he finally, wanted to meet us.
Yeah.
So I guess we were at least funny and amusing enough. Maybe not funny in the right way, but we want to find out what was behind, the email.
Yeah. It's a big chance he took.
Yeah.
And how often were you emailing back and forth with Bermuda at this point?
Well, back in the beginning, I mean, when I was, looking at the emails, I mean, within the first 2 years, we had 27 emails. So it was, maybe every couple of weeks we were emailing.
Yeah.
Now
wow.
it's maybe, 2 or 3 times a year, which I'm sure he's much happier with. But back then also, he said he was only getting maybe 5 or 6 emails a day.
Okay.
So, now, everyone gets, 50, 60 emails a day or whatever. So,
Right.
For sure. Yeah. So he probably was looking forward to your emails.
I don't know about that.
yeah, I don't think he was that bored, but
And over the 25 years, how many emails did you send to Bermuda?
well,
Some controversy.
yeah, we have 131
okay.
in the book. Rob was supposed to be making backups of all the emails. And there's like a 3-year period where we don't have any emails because his backup system failed us.
Oh, no.
So if anyone out there, if any of your listeners work for the NSA and would be able to get us, because we know they record every email, if they could get us those missing emails, we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, we will try to be complete.
You're right.
Then we could do another edition of the book with the missing emails.
Yeah, does Bermuda have copies of those emails?
He said he only keeps copies of emails from Weird Al. We did actually ask him.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
At least someone's archiving Weird Al emails. Maybe he's going to put out a book
Yeah.
himself.
Hey, that's another good idea. Yeah.
So, I mean, it takes a lot of foresight for 25 years to be saving these emails, apart from the ones that were lost. But, the fact that you were backing them up and holding on to them, were you always planning to write a book?
No, it's just we, for the first 5 or 6 years, it was all just printing them out after we had sent them,
Yeah.
and then storing them in a safe, of course.
Well, it was always, kind of a joke that we might do it someday. And I think, like a lot of things, COVID came around and all of a sudden you have all this time. And so, here's something we've talked about doing. Let's do it. Well, more Kevin, do it.
Yeah, so I just took all the old ones that were printed out, took them out of the safe, scanned them in, and, went from there.
I love that you kept them and you're able to, do that with them. I mean, when you guys would write the emails, was it always the two of you writing together, or would sometimes Kevin, you send an email, or Rob, would you send an email?
At the beginning, my acquaintance Rob would come over pretty much every Saturday to play video games and stuff. And during that time, we would spend, probably half hour or an hour crafting the emails.
Right.
And sending them off. But lately, the past 10 years, one of us, mainly me, will write the first draft, and then Rob will come in and punch it up a little bit.
Do either of you guys have a career in writing, or is this just like a fun thing that was on the side?
No, it was just a fun thing that, we decided to do. And you can tell, from some of them when our A game was there
Right.
versus some of the others. And there's some of them that, we would be leaving a concert and we'd have our phone out and we'd be typing up stuff and they just run on and on and on. And it's because we're trying to kill time driving home from Indiana. And so I'm sure Bermuda appreciated that.
Right. Yeah, I do notice that a lot of the emails that you get in response are a lot shorter than the ones that you guys sent to him.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, yes.
To be expected.
So it sounds like Bermuda was not spending hours writing these email responses. He just kind of...
No, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that he spent a lot less time thinking about us than we did thinking about him.
And that's why he's not listed as an author of the book either.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Well, I did notice, Kevin, your name's on the cover. You're listed as the author. Rob, why are you off the? You're not on the back cover or anything. What's the deal with that?
No, I was relegated to writing the foreword, and I figured let Kevin have all the credit, which is okay with me.
Well, Dave and I wouldn't allow it. We wanted both of you guys on, so we know the truth.
Yeah, so let me ask, you've written, over 130 emails, probably a lot more because of the missing emails. Has Bermuda responded to each and every one of those emails? Or is there a few that he's just like, all right, I've had enough of this Rob and Kevin group. I'm not going to respond to them anymore.
There's a couple he didn't respond to, but like occasionally he would change his email address thinking that, we couldn't find him, but then we'd find out what the new email address was and send it to the new one, and then he'd respond to that. So
Okay.
Well, I think the volume of emails just went up at a certain point, and he would occasionally miss some of them. I don't think on purpose or anything, but
yeah,
he would write a
because
second one.
some of the later ones, it'll take him 2 or 3 months to respond to an email if he's real busy with like touring or something, and it just our emails obviously aren't the top of his reply list, and they just fall down and
Right. Incredible.
I love the description of your books, like on the back cover on Amazon. In one of the least anticipated books of 2021, almost guaranteed to not be a bestseller, read the exciting email exchanges between 2 college acquaintances and their favorite drummer. A quarter century of emails preserved forever in this Vade Mecum? What does that even mean?
I don't even remember. I was just some stupid Latin stuff that I found. And
I thought, like, when I saw the blurb, the first thing I saw was like the last 2 words, and I just assumed it was like lorem ipsum, and I was like, did they forget to write a thing? And then I was like, oh no, they put that there intentionally.
All right, so this book covers roughly through the beginning of 2021. Have you written to Bermuda since then? And what are your plans with those emails? Is there a volume 2 coming out?
probably in another 25 years, we'll put a volume 2 out.
Okay.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
So you've written to Bermuda since then.
Oh, yeah.
And you still okay. All right.
And he
still replies.
Yeah. So I mean, some of the later emails in the book, you're actually talking to Bermuda about the book that we're talking about here, Dear John, Emails to a Drummer. What did you anticipate his reaction was, and how would you describe his reaction when you said you were actually moving forward with writing a book?
Well, we had to get his permission, of course, and I guess he thought we wouldn't go through publishing it. So we also asked him to write the foreword, and he declined, saying it would be too obvious to write the foreword.
Right.
Yeah, like it would be too obvious for Al to write the foreword to John's book.
And he actually said that it might be too obvious for me to write the foreword. Maybe another high-profile fan friend could do it. Marty, Dave, Mike. So, Dave, you were actually referenced in the book.
Very cool. Very cool.
But not Ethan.
I saw that.
But I did notice you guys didn't like his suggestion enough to reach out to me and ask me to write this forward. Now, did you?
No.
That's Rob's fault.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Pretty much everything's my fault.
We will get you to write the foreword in the 50th anniversary edition.
I like it. I agree. All right, I will start working on it right now.
Okay.
And I will send you a few drafts. So when you get like about 130 emails from me, each one of them is going to be a different version of what I'm planning on writing for the introduction to your next book.
Okay.
Okay, good.
And then you can take those emails, put them together, and put out a third edition of a book.
Ooh.
Dear Dave, emails to a Weird Al fan.
See, I don't want to write any kind of introduction for you guys. I just want Bermuda to list me as a high-profile fan. in one of his emails. So that's my goal, is that in addition to he mentions me somewhere.
As a
high-profile fan.
We'll bring that up in our next email, so
Okay.
he'll do that.
All right. Yeah, get his ranking. How high of a profile fan do I rank as? That's it'd be very helpful to me on my plate.
Yeah.
So one thing that I see come up a lot in your emails, of course, is each year there's a crazy Christmas gift that is given and curated by you guys to Bermuda. Can you tell us about some of your favorites?
Well, yeah, his basement's probably full of our junk, or his garage if he hasn't thrown it out. But, part of what we wanted to do was commemorate, when we saw him. So we'd always take a picture with him, and the gift that we wouldn't send back to him would somehow include that picture.
Okay.
And it was any number of things, and we switch off, who buys, what year,
Okay.
kind of thing. And like we sent, silly things like
We sent a pillowcase one year, which he said he took on the tour bus.
Wow.
And imagine a pillowcase of our picture with him,
Getting drooled and snored on. How awesome.
right.
Yeah, exactly. He seemed to, him and his dogs really like, we sent him a leash one year with our pictures on it. And he says the dogs really like it. So.
Wow. Well, how do you get on a leash?
Oh, they'll put your pictures on anything.
Yeah, there's all kinds of sites that'll put pictures on stuff. So I think the first one was a mug.
Okay.
And I think that one, the handle or something broke on it, and we had to send out for another one. But, we've had like puzzles.
Oh.
Which probably to this day he's never put together. But luckily there's a picture on the outside of the tin that shows what it would look like if he were to put it together. But yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Now, what about the actual email exchange? Is it coming from Kevin's email address? Is it coming from Rob's? Is there a joint email that you guys share in order to do this? I'm very curious about that.
Oh, no, it comes from my email address.
Okay.
Yeah. So, which is why mine's the only name on the book.
Okay. All right.
I'm just a background contributor.
Right. Do you regret that now, Rob, all these years later?
No, I don't at all.
Okay.
The less my name is on this stuff, the better. No, we kind of, consider it a running joke. It's funny.
So with every successful book, what usually follows is some kind of movie deal. Are you guys planning to make any kind of movie out of this book?
We're currently in negotiations with, who are we in negotiations with now, Rob? Katzenberg and
Ron Howard.
Ron Howard's looking at it.
Who would probably play me.
Yeah, who would play Bermuda?
Yeah, I don't know.
Matt Damon, maybe?
That's a good question.
Maybe Jason Statham.
Joe Pesci.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Pesci.
Good.
All
You
right.
think I'm funny?
So I'm very curious. So you're a fan of Weird Al. You're a fan of his music. You're a fan of his drummer. Are you a fan of the other members of the band? And have you emailed any of them?
No, just John.
No,
I mean, we like all the other, we're fans of everybody, but John's the only one that we've emailed.
Okay.
Steve J, Jim West, Ruben Valtierra,
Are they
even Brian Otto when he subs.
Are they jealous? Have you talked to them ever about your emails?
No, we think Bermuda might be jealous, but not the other way around.
What about, outside of the realm of Al, are there other musicians or celebrities, or is there anyone else that you guys contribute on emails together?
No, just John. John's the only one worthy of our time.
Yeah.
Oh, understood. Yeah, it makes complete sense. I understand, Kevin. So you've got a little bio on the back of the book. So Rob, I don't know as much about your hobbies, but Kevin, anyone who purchases the book is able to learn that you are not only a CPA, a certified public accountant, you're an EA, which I'm not sure what that means, but you're also a minister in the Universal Life Church, which I am also a minister in the Universal Life Church. So it's very nice to speak to someone else who is a member of such an important organization.
Now, have you married anyone?
I married one person. Well, I guess two people. Technically. One couple.
Well, that's the same for Kevin. He did the same thing just last year, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my niece got married last year, so I was able to officiate the wedding, which was real neat.
Very cool. Rob, are you are you a minister? What kind of stuff? What can we say about your outside of emailing John life?
No, there isn't much to say. If you figure I'm doing this kind of stuff, and I'm available at Friday night at 5 p.m., that I'm probably not very interesting, and that's pretty much the case. Now we've had some fun at you guys at one point I think had mentioned Alcon. We went to the first one, and I don't know if you remember, at the beginning, they had us all in a room, and John had made some remarks, and it was clear to everybody there, and it was told when the tickets were sold that Al was not going to be there. And so John made those introductory remarks, and then he kind of opened it up for questions, and I raised my hand from one of the back tables, and at that moment, Kevin went, "Oh my God." And he put his head down, and he scooted over 2 spaces from me, because I think he had some sense of what was coming. And I said, "Hi, I'm Rob Lenz from the Chicago Tribune." And the room kind of went quiet. And I said, "If we were to hold John Con here next year," and the whole room erupted in cheers. I said, "John, would you come to it, or would you send Weird Al?" And then I was roundly booed. Kevin kept moving away from me. And then John turned around and he showed a film clip from Weird Al, where he was saying he was sorry he couldn't be there and all that. And then, as he burst out from behind the screen and was there afterwards. So my little incident would have been, on the back burner there at that point. So, but we've had all kinds of funny, things like that. Like Kevin called me one time when Weird Al was on WGN radio, and this was about the time of the Bad Hair Day tour, and he said, "We got to call in. They're taking calls." And Kevin kept trying. He couldn't get through. I got through the first time, and I was able to. I talked for a little bit, and just a little bit about the album. Nothing particularly interesting. And then after that segment, they read a bedtime story. And then they wanted people to call in with the names of their kids so they could say goodnight to them after they read the story. And, Al, I guess, was the one reading the story.
Okay.
So I called back a second time. Kevin was trying to call back, too. He never did get through. I called back. I got through. And they said, "What is the name of your child?" And I said, "Bermuda." And the guy goes, "No, your child's name is not Bermuda." And I said, no, really, it'd be funny. Just do it. I said, you can ask Weird Al if you want. And so, he put me on hold for a second, and he came back and he said, "Okay, we'll do it." And then, so they read off all these kids' names, and they said Bermuda, and then of course Al reacts and goes, "Oh wow, that's my drummer's name." And he really played it up. But in one of the emails, I think we said to John, we were, Al was on, WGN in Chicago, one of the biggest radio stations. He was promoting himself, and he was going to leave you out of that promotion, and we had to correct that problem. So we called in and we took care of it for you. So we've had, a lot of funny little anecdotes like that have occurred over the years. Just fun stuff.
And one thing that is very curious to me, someone who I've worked in marketing before, and I know, like when we had Bermuda on talking about his book, he talked about specifically putting Weird Al in the title, so it's extra Googleable. Not only do you not mention Weird Al, you don't even mention John's last name. You just say John. Even in the description on the book cover, you don't even say Bermuda. Is that intentional, or is that an oversight?
Well, I think no matter what we did, it wasn't going to sell any books. So that might be why there's a lack of marketing effort there. We could put all the keywords in the world, and I still don't think anybody would do anything.
Well, I hope our listeners will, go through the trouble to try and find it, because I think it's a fantastic book. I think it's extremely relevant for anyone with a Weird Al collection, or anyone who's a fan of Weird Al or John Bermuda Schwartz. I highly recommend it. I've got the book. I know Dave's got the book. It's a fantastic book, and it really shows that you guys are hardcore Weird Al fans and hardcore John Bermuda Schwartz fans, and you're dedicated, and you're putting an effort into putting out more stuff into the Weird Al fandom, and I gotta applaud that. I think that's awesome.
Well, thank you.
But a lot of it too is just honestly, it was just for almost our own amusement. And to say that, it was done. And it's a bonus at this point if anybody buys it or reads it. We don't even care about buying it necessarily.
Yeah, Kevin, let me ask you something. I understand that you created an app on Alexa. Can you tell us a little bit about that app that you have?
Well, yeah, people are always, want to know what great facts there are about me, to get to know more about Kevin.
Yeah.
So anyone that has an Alexa can just do the following. Alexa, open Kevin McKee facts.
Here's your fact. Kevin's favorite podcast is Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Wow.
I love that. Wow.
What a great
The
fact.
odds of that one coming up now is unbelievable.
Wow.
Because there's, 50, 60 facts in there.
Wow. Well, that's obviously the most important fact. What else?
Yeah.
What else could we look forward to? I mean, I don't have an Alexa. I'm going to get an Alexa just so I can check out Kevin McKee facts.
Exactly. I think that's like one of the most downloaded apps on Alexa.
I would have to assume so. Well, guys, this has been so much fun getting to hear all about the book, Bermuda, and you guys. Just you seem like interesting characters and exactly the type of people that Dave and I love to get to know, and we hope that we can see you at a show sometime, in the Chicagoland area, or if you guys venture east towards New York or New Jersey, it would be great to visit a show with you guys sometime, and we applaud your work and spreading the good word about Weird Al and Bermuda and the use of technology, I suppose. It's all great.
Well, thanks a lot for having us on the show, and maybe we could meet midway, maybe a concert in Cleveland or something.
That would be great.
Well, yeah, we can go to a concert with you as soon as the restraining order expires.
Yeah, Al has a restraining order against me.
Oh. So. I think that should be your next book, is all of the warning notices and paperwork around the restraining order.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll see a sequel soon. The book is called Dear John, Emails to a Drummer, and you can find it on Amazon. Thanks, guys, so much for chatting with us.
Thanks a lot for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for sharing your amazing story with us, Kevin and Rob. We're so happy to throw our official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast support behind your book.
And we're also thrilled to give our official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast support behind Kevin's Alexa app on Amazon. All you have to do is say, Alexa, open Kevin McKee facts.
I've used Kevin's app a couple times already, and he really has some cool facts in there. It's definitely fun to check out. What a silly idea, but what a great idea.
I love it. It's brilliant. And of course, be sure to pick up their book on Amazon. It's called Dear John, Emails to a Drummer.
Well, that noise means we have a call on the 347 Spatula Hotline. The 347 Spatula Hotline, the official hotline of Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, is sponsored by Angel Valenzuela and David Cash, two amazing Weird Al fans and longtime podcast supporters.
Frank, play the message!
Hi, Dave. Hi, Ethan. You posted, an idea for a secret episode, and I had an idea, and this could be, the inaugural question for it. But I personally have some questions that I want to ask y'all. So what if there's like a Q&A, sort of segment where you use the 347 Spatula Hotline, the official hotline of David Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, which is sponsored by Angel Venezuela and David Cash, two amazing Weird Al fans and longtime podcast supporters. Just an idea, for a Q&A segment. So, my question is, if this gets bumped up to an official secret episode concept, I got tons of them. But my question is, how long had the idea of 127 being Al's episode been? At what point did Al, say, all right, guys, are you really wanting to wait for 2000? Because I don't know. I feel like it's a pretty. I doubt that he just called you up on October 5th. Anyway, that is my question. I'm sure Frank will cut it down so that there's less rambling. I'm sure this part will be cut out. I hope this part is cut out. If this part's not cut out. Anyway, bye, guys.
Wow, Jackson, thank you so much for your phone call. And what a great idea, Dave.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We'd be happy to field any questions that our listeners have, so please give a call to the 347 Spatula Hotline with your Ask Dave and Ethan Anything series of questions.
And I would even go as far as to say, maybe we should do a special secret episode where we just let Jackson host it and let them ask us whatever they want to ask. And Dave, you and I will answer anything.
I love that idea. Let's get our intern Frank right on that.
And just because it was already asked, I do want to address the question from Jackson's voicemail. Of course, we did not record any interview with Weird Al in October. Like you mentioned, we actually did just take clips from our interview that we recorded in the future for episode 2000-inch. I hope that clears it up.
Yeah, we tried to make that as clear as possible on the podcast, so we apologize if that wasn't clear to anybody.
Oh, hey, Dave, speaking of, I have an idea for a secret episode.
Oh, yeah? What were you thinking?
What if, on the secret episode, we discuss in great detail each TikTok video of Sebastian Shepard, a.k.a. David Grant, a.k.a. Dave Grant, a.k.a. Sheepdog, a.k.a. Paul Squall, a.k.a. Wolf and Wool, a.k.a. MC Chalkskin, a.k.a. at SEB_SHEP.
Wow, that sounds like something Sebastian Shepard, a.k.a. David Grant, a.k.a. Dave Grant, a.k.a. Sheepdog, a.k.a. Paul Squall, a.k.a. Wolf and Wool, a.k.a. MC Choskin, a.k.a. at SEB_SHEP would love, and everyone else would probably totally hate it.
Totally hate it? But why?
Because they've already subscribed and obsessively follow everything Sebastian Shepard, a.k.a. David Grant, a.k.a. Dave Grant, a.k.a. Sheepdog, a.k.a. Paul Squall, a.k.a. Wolf and Wool, a.k.a. MC Chalskin, a.k.a. at SEB_SHEP already posts.
Well, everything Sebastian Shepard, a.k.a. David Grant, a.k.a. Dave Grant, a.k.a. Sheepdog, a.k.a. Paul Squall, a.k.a. Wolf and Wool, a.k.a. MC Chalkskin, a.k.a. at SEB_SHEP is fascinating!
Well, I agree with that. So head right on over to wolfandwool.com and then follow at SEB_SHEP on TikTok.
This week's episode is brought to you in part by Discover Darwin, promoting tourism in Darwin, Minnesota. Not only is historic Darwin, Minnesota beautiful, it's also got a quite swell mayor.
This past week, Ethan and I received very thoughtful gifts from our good friend, who also happens to be the mayor of Darwin, Minnesota, Mayor Josh Johnson, who we spoke to on episode 119-inch.
Now, not only did we get our very own Twine Ball t-shirts, we got a bumper sticker, a postcard from the Twine Ball that said, "Greeting from the Twine Ball, wish you were here," and a drink koozie.
And I got a special bonus, a Darwin Twine K t-shirt.
Darwin, Minnesota is home to the Darwin Twine K, a 17,400-foot run to celebrate a 17,400-pound ball of twine.
Be sure to head over to our official Facebook group, group.2000inch.com, for a picture of me wearing the t-shirt.
And for no picture of me wearing a t-shirt, because they didn't send me one, because they didn't have any left in my shirt size.
So visit Darwin, Minnesota on your next Twine K run. Discover Darwin, more than just a twine ball. And after you visit Darwin, Minnesota, be sure to visit that great website, discoverdarwin.biz.
Each week, we're able to bring you our podcast absolutely free, thanks to our sponsors Burrito, Discover Darwin, Jackson Scoggins, David Granite, wolfandwool.com, and Angel Valenzuela and David Cash.
And thank you to our amazing close personal friend Patreon supporters, Jake, Javier, UH Jeff, Zeb, Allison, Scott, Blair, Adriana, Frank from the Bank, Kenneth, and Jared. And thanks to Joe and everyone else in our pretty stinking majestic Patreon family.
If you enjoy our family-friendly weekly Weird Al podcast, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/2000inch or by picking up some pretty stinking majestic official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast merchandise. You can get our logo on stuff. You can get Gill and Chill on stuff. You can even get the official Discover Darwin logo on stuff by heading over to shop.2000inch.com.
Grab your copies of Black and White and Weird All Over and check out our special bonus episode book series where author John Bermuda Schwartz walks us through the book page by page and picture by picture. Black and White and Weird All Over bonus episode 8 centimeter, which is chapter 5, the Polka Party Mixing Session, will drop on Monday, November 22nd. Plus, secret episodes chronicling our soda pop reviews have continued to drop on our Patreon page at patreon.com/2000inch. Our Patreon family gets to hear all bonus episodes early, and they are the only ones who get to hear the secret episodes.
We love hearing from our listeners and other Weird Al fans. Join our Facebook community and post about Weird Al by visiting group.2000inch.com. And we also love it when we receive voicemail via our official 27-hour-a-day podcast hotline, 347-SPATULA. You might even hear your message on a future episode.
For everything about our podcast, including incredible past episodes and guests, be sure to visit WeirdAlPodcast.com or 2000inch.com and keep up on new episodes, podcast news, and events by following at 2000inch on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And thank you for subscribing and leaving reviews on your favorite podcast app. And if you want a quick and easy way to listen to the podcast, just say, Alexa, play Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Thank you once again to our guests Kevin McKee and Rob Lenz. Also thank you to Jackson Scoggins, Comedy Bang Bang, Scott Ackerman, Darwin Mayer, Josh Johnson, John Caffiero, Barnes & Barnes, and Demented Punk Records. Thank you to the Grammy Award-winning Jim Kimo West for our incredible podcast theme song. And thank you to Weird Al Yankovic, as this podcast probably would not exist without him. And a big thanks to all of you, our listeners, subscribers, Patreon supporters, and sponsors, and everyone else who makes our podcast possible.
Thank you for listening to Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, and always remember to gill and chill.
Well, we were on Accordion Noir last week, and then mentioned on Comedy Bang Bang this week. Which podcast do you think will show up on next week?
Well, maybe we show up on Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast?
Psh, if we're lucky.
That was Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 133-inch.
As mentioned on Comedy Bang Bang.
And I did listen to Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.